NotebookLM do a video overview of mushrooms. Now, you might think that it's kind of weird or interesting, except that I photographed a local mushroom from the Suillus family that basically looks a little bit different than what's usually shown in field guides or in the literature. And I went through the literature and identified 8 different websites, and I got them incorporated into NotebookLM. And I wanted NotebookLM to create a video story from those sources. And I got to tell you that most of this information that I gave to Notebook it's really dry, technical literature. Basically, dichotomous keys where it's an either or type thing. So what happened is, well, I will show you in the following slides here, okay? So the purpose of me doing so was, again, to give a video overview of this particular mushroom species, which is the sticky bolete, which is pictured to the right, okay? Again, I added 8 web-based links as information sources. I asked for a comprehensive overview via the chat feature. Now remember that Notebook has different tools available, and one is the chat feature, which you actually prompt it, I prompted it, and it supplied me with a single paragraph with an overview of just this species from the 8 information sources. Step 2, I wanted to really have a video overview, and I went into the studio tool of NotebookLM that's on the right-hand side when you open it up Notebook, using the same information. And the video results were really, I waited, of course, several minutes because there was a lot of information to ingest. And I was really shocked to find that the overview focused mostly on a PDF monograph from 1964 and a JPEG of the cover of that particular publication is to the right. And it was done by 2 fellows, Alexander H. Smith and Harry D. Thiers. And actually, it looked at the entire genus, which is, when we're talking about wildlife, most plants or animals have a common name and then they have a scientific name, so that no matter what language you speak in the world, the scientific name will be able to identify what you're talking about. So the genus is Suillus, Suillus, and it's a group of mushrooms that all have similar characteristics. Now, the paper examined the physical characteristics of the entire genus, not just the one mushroom species that I wanted to focus on, to determine taxonomy and identification. And to my amazement, it formatted this as a mystery story. And I was totally blown away because, again, this is really dry technical stuff. And who would have thought that you could create a story out of something that is so, bland? I watched the video overview, and the title was The Suillus Mystery. Wow, I would have never thought this up in a million years. And it had a great voiceover, and the story was formatted and sequenced beautifully, just like a story that you'd read from Edgar Allan Poe. There's the 5 parts of a story: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. All those were in there. I was totally amazed. I didn't prompt any of this stuff. It used plain language, and it created a video that was 6 minutes and 51 seconds long, and it's slideshow based, okay? Now, again, this wasn't my end goal, but it still blew me away by the excellence. In fact, the exposition being the first part of a story basically is setting the context, and then on the right-hand side, that box explains what the protagonist was. And the species within this group of Suillus were considered one of the most confused groups of fleshy fungi in North America. This is back in 1964. And the bottom little box, taxonomic gray area, where one mushroom genus blurred into another, frustrated science for decades. Now that's the rising action. So immediately in your own mind, you can picture these guys sitting in a lab, scratching their head, sweating bullets, trying to figure out what mushroom that they have in front of them. And these two authors, again, decided to really look at this intensely. They spent several years doing this. And these are some snippets, again, of the video overview results. And the top one on the right is a slide, basically the climax, cracking the code, as these two fellows looked at the physical characteristics of these mushrooms, trying to figure out a way to identify them in a way that's not as frustrating and confusing as it had been over the last 100 years or so, okay? And the falling action part of the story is these are the three physical characteristics that they use to classify these mushrooms or identify them. This had not been done before, and the main feature was the color of the spores. In fact, in today's world, this is really an important thing to separate groups of mushrooms, is by looking at the colors of the spores. So this was really a really an important paper or work that they did. And then we got to the resolution where they actually, you can see in the upper right here, they have that little box that the old view of identification was replaced by their newer way of doing business, which is, first of all, you look at the spore color to determine if it is even a Suillus mushroom. And you can see that the bottom little inset spore deposit color was the decisive piece of evidence that redefined the entire genus. So this was all accurate. I was totally impressed, except there were three small glitches. And, it was breaking my heart because I can't really publish that thing if it's science-based and it has mistakes in it. And in one place, it used the word gills instead of the proper term, pores and tubes. This group of mushrooms does not have gills. It has tubes in which the spores are manufactured and then dropped to the ground. So that was number one problem. Number two problem, it used the wrong adjective a couple times to actually apply a common name for all Suillus species. And they aren't really considered as a group sticky boletes. They're instead considered slippery boletes. That seems kind of picky, but let me tell you, that is really true. Many of these mushrooms are really slippery or slimy, and so that is really an important way to classify them. Now, what I found was that I couldn't edit the MP4 that I created. So I was scratching my head, what am I gonna do? And then I thought, okay, I'm just gonna go back and ask it to do a second video overview. And you can see the original one to the left has a red streak through it, and this is the new one it created. It changed the title ever so slightly from The Suillus Mystery to Solving the Suillus Mystery. And I gotta tell you, it did a perfect job. In fact, I'm hoping this is going to work, but we're going to look at a couple minutes to give you an idea on how incredibly cool this really was. I think if people have never been exposed to mushrooms, they might really be really curious after listening to the story that this machine created. Okay, we're going to click on this and see if this is going to...
Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs in science aren't about finding something totally new, but about finally solving a really, really old mystery. Today, we're diving into a full-on mycological detective story,